This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Good news, everyone! Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool!
I know.
It feels so right! It's Jake Ciely.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman. Pretending not to know. Earth's greatest mastermind! You just made the list!
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you does. You'll understand why I said that in a minute. It is week 9, fantasy football rankings, and as always, we have a terrific guest on the Wednesday show. Well, I have a terrific guest on the Wednesday show. We're going to talk the Bam Knight situation, Chargers, Travis Hunter, Kareem Hunt with no Isiah Pacheco, the Packers wide receivers, a lot of fun, Halloween candy, which, by the way, check the link over The Athletic, and make sure you jump into the discussion of the best Halloween candy, and also ranking all the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups by the request of somebody who I forget, but kudos to you, whoever you were that asked. But before we get to that, before we get to the guest, I wanted to touch on two things, and then after the guest, I will have my buys and sells and wrap things up. But first, I want to make sure that everybody is stashing as many running backs as you possibly can find. If anything wasn't just a testament to why that's important, is just look at the fact that Cam Scadaboo's injury, Isiah Pacheco, potentially only out for 1 week, but point being is that Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson, and Rashad White is already picked up, but if we get Bucky Irving back, like a lot of people are asking if they should drop White, not until we know that Bucky Irving's definitively back. Corum, Bigsby, obviously, with the Saquon Barkley injury scare, and all the way down the list of Ray Davis and Monongais and Ollie Gordons of the world and Isaiah Davis, whether hurt or traded for Breece Hall. These all need to be at rosters at this point of the season. I'm talking drop your second quarterback, drop your second tight end. I know you have plans in case you need buys, but these are more important. These will be more of your league winning options to have on your roster. Look, I'm not trying to be like, haha, look at me, but there was one league where we have Samson, Bam Knight, and Tyrone Tracy all on the roster already with Isaiah Davis, and I'm sitting pretty for trades too. So that's the big thing there. Please make sure you're doing it the right way. You'll be better off for it. And then before we get to our guest, the terrific analyst and better friend that's coming up, the Tyler Shough situation, which is why I said, what's up, you does, instead of ducks, because for some reason his last name is Shough. There you go. It was a terrible joke, but I still don't believe his last name is Shough. Anyway, he's taking over the quarterback for the Saints. Who knows if it's long-term? They might go back and forth for the rest of the year. But I see a lot of questions, and deservedly so, of like what this does to the offense and what about Chris Olave. The real thing here is that Shough could open things up, could be more aggressive downfield, but the concern obviously is, does he pepper Chris Olave as much as Spencer Rattler was? Short to intermediate consistency with his passes, and especially targeting Chris Olave, and as you saw, benefited Juwan Johnson most of the season, not the entire season, but the point being is that Shough could go the other way, could hit Shaheed more deep, and just the volume. The volume could hurt Chris Olave, but also Chris Olave could see a few more targets downfield as well. So I'm downgrading Chris Olave just a smidge, but not too much. It is worth watching. If you want to trade Chris Olave, but before this happens, maybe somebody in your league wants him off of what he's done or the trade rumors, you could definitely do so to avoid the risk, but I'm not panicking. So as promised, one of my favorite people in the business, I knew him when he was at the first Flex event ever as an intern. Putting in the draft picks. I trust this guy so much, I gave him my password during that day, and that's how long ago I know Michael Florio, the good Michael Florio of NFL Network. Mike, I could go through the entire list. Also, I think that might be the first time I've ever called you Mike and not Florio. Tell everybody, like, at Michael F. Florio, but all the rest of the stuff that you got going over there. You wear costumes now on your breakdowns and everything. Like, tell everybody you got going on. You got a million things going on in NFL Network.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to be busy this time of year. Fantasy Live is the main place, but I do Insiders every Tuesday and Thursday. NFL Fantasy Football Show with Marcus Grant and Laquan Jones comes out 3-4 times a week. And then outside of the Stardom Sit-em every week there as well. And then I'm doing if you're a Bills fan, I do a Bills podcast, me and Stevie Johnson, called the Sick Podcast, Bills Banter. And then I do stuff over at Rotoballer where I write an article. I have a pod called Florio's Football Show. So yeah, lots of like to get stretched in this time of year, but I always tell my friends and family, like I'll see you after football season. There's plenty of time in the 6 months in between the season for that, you know?
Yeah, just one of these years, guys, see you in person again in New York, which would be nice. I've tried to make the LA thing happen, but I can't get enough of like people to be in that league to come all the way out there for flex. But I will say this, on the good side, if anybody's listening to this podcast and want an example of somebody who started from legit, like I know people are like, oh, you started from nothing, you sent your stuff out there, but I was somewhat established when I saw Florio starting and also did the same thing I did, was just taking every job he possibly could to keep going, and went from intern at the same company I was working for to now one of the leads on the NFL Network. I mean, you don't get much bigger than that. So kudos to you, by the way. I know we joke about it all the time, but like it's a hell of a testament to what you've been doing.
Well, thank you. Very, very, very lucky. Timing always has to be on your side, and don't downplay yourself where you were like, oh, you know, I was just getting like, no, you were well established, and you were someone that I know I looked up to, and I don't want to speak for others, but I think others who were starting out that company as well also did.
Well, I appreciate that as well. A fireback compliment. I appreciate that. But we're not just here to hug and kiss the entire show from across the coasts. Florio, we do need to talk Week 9. And as always, I do 5 big topics with my guests. I have 2 fun questions, so we're going to intersperse them. I usually save them for the end, but I decided this week you get to be the first one. Then I'm going to go 2 topics, fun question, 2 topics, fun question, and then the last. So yeah, so we're going to kind of balance it out. But the big one off the top, so we're all sitting here, and I made the Friday joke, if you remember that movie, of saying, how the hell do you get fired on your day off, Michael Carter? Like, what the hell happened? But he's back with the practice squad, but he's only on the practice squad. So, of course, we still are at least a week away from Trey Benson. Bam Knight gets the matchup of all matchups that everybody goes off against it. Like, they could probably allow you and me to average maybe 1 yard per carry. I want to at least, like, we won't get killed going against them. So, with the Carter thing, and I you can put in your answer whether or not they reactivate him on game day if you want, but how are you feeling like Bam Knight? Like, because this is one of those times where it might feel kind of trappish, like we're chasing this middling running back who's just in a position that he's in because of injuries. So Bam Knight, I just put it this, RB2 question mark for this week.
I think so. Now, I don't think he is a set it and forget it type. Like, it very much so depends on your options. Like, I have one team where I have Bam Knight, but my other options are like Kamani Vidal, Chase Brown, and I forget my third running back on that team. But I like all 3 of my backs better than Bam Knight, so I'm not playing Bam Knight there. But I have another league where I've been, you know, really banged up by injuries and stuff, and I'm going – Bam Knight was dropped on like Sunday in this league. I'm going pretty aggressive on waivers, hoping to get him and be able to start him, because I do see the point. Like, it could be a trap game and stuff, but he had 18 opportunities in their last game. He's been used over Michael Carter now 2 games in a row. The Cardinals saw what they had in Michael Carter and then made the move to Bam Knight. And then I know he's on the practice squad, could be active Sunday, but they cut him knowing that there's a risk that they don't get him back or something like that. So to me, Bam Knight is the leader in the clubhouse. And the matchup, like you were talking about, it's just, I mean, they give up a bunch of yards, a bunch of touchdowns. They struggle against them through the air. Like, they don't make a lot of, they struggle to get them before the line of scrimmage, stuff like that. So I just think with the matchup and the usage that we have seen, Bam Knight is very much so an RB2 or a flex option this week. But yeah, like you said, it might only be a 1 week thing because Trey Benson could be back next week and probably comes back as the lead back. So don't use like all your fab to get him. But I think Bam Knight is someone that you could definitely plug and play this week.
Let me throw you a follow-up then. Tyrone Tracy or Bam Knight if you had to choose on your team this week?
Just this week, I would take Bam Knight. But if they're both on waivers, I'm going to go Tracy because we know that he's more than just a 1 week thing.
And let me throw you one more curveball here. We did talk baseball before we came on. And this honestly feels like where we used to work a long time. This feels like a Nando DeFino curveball that I'm throwing at you. Because I'm going to say, like, I just like to think outside of the box here. And
Bam Knight or my firstborn son?
No, but the second fun question is a Nando DeFino special, by the way. I will say this. I've been doing it every single episode. I have his blessing. He doesn't do the podcast anymore. But anyway, the Bam Knight one. Is Bam Knight a potential buy low for somebody, or not even buy high because he's facing the Cowboys? Is he a potential buy for somebody who might need running back help just on the off chance that Benson doesn't come back next week, or Benson has a setback, or it's even a 50-50 split, which isn't a great situation, but if you're desperate for a running back, he's a potential so cheap that you might as well kind of go get the help because you're basically buying it what is like the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think he can fit into that. Like, obviously, we do not know what Trey Benson's health is going to be like a week from now, and we do not know what the Cardinals' internal plan is, but Trey Benson it's not like it's James Conner coming back, like he was a backup. He looked good in that role, but if Bam Knight puts up a huge performance this week, I think it's possible that we see a split. And I think it's possible that even, let's say Trey Benson comes back, we've seen players, especially not the cream of the crop, like higher end talent players, struggle to regain their old form after an injury. So I definitely think the opportunity is there for Knight to steal away more work than we're thinking he's going to get right now. Yeah, but that being said, I'm not giving up something of real, like anyone that I start
anything consequence. Yeah, like exactly. A wide receiver 5 or 6 or something like just to
yeah.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of wide receiver 5s and 6s, it would have been nice if Quentin Johnston was even a wide receiver 5 last week. He got a big fat 0 for a lot of people, and I feel like I just want to get your opinion on this because I've answered this question a lot, and I feel like there's a degree where people listening to us are going to be like, yeah, but that's not a great answer. But I feel like it's the truth. And this is what I've been saying. I mean, hey, you're out there in LA, so you get to watch them all the time. Is that I referenced when Luther Burden had that huge week, and I was like, do you know how rare, talking to everybody else, like how rare it is for 3 players from the same team to have 1,000 yards, let alone 900 plus yards? And again, how infrequent it's happened over the history. So 900 yards hasn't even happened 10 times, and then 1,000 plus yards hasn't even happened 5 times. And that wasn't even talking about the Chargers. But I brought up the Chargers at the time to say this, Mike. I said, look at them. As good as they're playing, Ladd McConkey was the one that was taking it on the chin to start the year. Everybody was panicking about Ladd McConkey. And then he started to come around a little bit, but then it was all of a sudden Keenan Allen's turn, and Keenan Allen fell to the wayside. And now that Gadsden is a thing, Quentin Johnston's a non-factor. And this is what I said, is that Ladd is the only one I think we can trust, and the rest are going to be, you have to put all 3 of them, Gadsden included, in your lineup and understand there's going to be bad weeks for all of them, and there's going to be good weeks for all of them. Do you see it differently? And then to add to that question, is there one that you feel the best about outside of Ladd?
I think it's exactly how you see it. There's going to be pockets of the season where like we get really high on one of them. And look, I took like an L. I did like the whole, like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have told you to draft Ladd McConkey in round 2. I believed in him after the first 4 weeks. At that point in time, though, I was still like, look, he's not far off from where he was at this time last year, and he finished as wide receiver 13. Like, it's a reminder, it's a very long season, and a couple of big games could change your outlook completely. In the last month, Ladd McConkey's averaging 19 fantasy points per game. He leads them in basically every receiving category. So I agree with you. I feel best about him. I think after that, Keenan has the safest floor. But you might be looking at a lot of like 8 to 10 point weeks. The reason I think he's the safest is because I think third and Keenan is a real thing. And I just think Justin Herbert trusts Keenan Allen the most out of all of those options. Quentin Johnston, to me, has the highest ceiling because he's the best field stretcher and he could catch a long touchdown. But as we saw last week, the floor is very low. And then to make it even more complicated, Gadsden of the 3 is the one I would be most comfortable starting each week because the bar for tight end is so low. Like, if you get 8 points out of Keenan, Quentin Johnston, and Gadsden, the one that you will be most happy about is Gadsden because 8 points from a tight end is solid. A wide receiver, that's a pretty disappointing day. And then this week in particular, I think, is a Gadsden week because the Titans use zone at a very high rate, and he has been in the last month. It's him and Ladd are the guys who get the most he has the most yards, I know, against zone coverage in the last month. So I do like him this week. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a headache week to week. And I am happy, though, that we are on the same page that Ladd is the one you could trust most because a lot of people were doubting Ladd in those first 4 or 5 weeks, and he's reminded everyone, like, no, he's a really great wide receiver.
He's the dude. All right. So, fun question. There we go. To pause and have some fun. This is the Halloween week of rankings that I do every single year. My favorite Halloween candy. I also usually throw a little curveball in there. I've done the worst candy. I've done Halloween movies. This year, somebody asked me to rank all the peanut butter cup variations from Reese's, which was a fun and interesting list. I didn't remember I had half of them. But anyway, I wanted to ask that. It's just, what's your favorite Halloween candy? What's the one where, like, Michael Florio is out there going with his nieces, nephews, family members, and tries to sneak it out of the bag while they're not looking because you got to have it?
So the number one answer for me is Sour Patch Kids. Those have always been
Really?
my favorite.
Like the OGs?
Yeah. I mean, I'll eat them in any variety. Like I like all of their, like the watermelon ones and all those other flavors. But
have you had the strawberry ones?
No, I haven't had those yet.
Oh, you have to. If you can't find them out there, I will mail you a pack. The strawberry ones are so good, but they don't have the Halloween version. Sorry, continue. Keep going.
Oh, my wife's favorite flavor in anything is strawberry, so I need to get those ASAP. But those are one. But if I think chocolate comes in a little bit of a different category. So if you want
agree
chocolate,
with you.
Yeah, because they're completely different. For me, it's Twix or Milky Way. Those have always. I don't like peanut butter, so like Reese's. Like people always make fun of me for that.
Wow.
But I don't want any of those. You can have all of them. I know you like Peeps. Like you can have those.
Who likes Peeps?
Don't you?
No.
Don't you have a rating on them?
No, that's not me.
I thought you did a rating on different Peeps. I just assume any candy rating I've ever seen.
It's just me. Is that what it is? Candy, cereal, whatever it is. I think people are trying to wrap their brains around the fact that you don't like the peanut butter. Like a Milky Way is like the last on my list because it's basically Snickers without the peanuts, and it's
Which
just
is
like,
why I love it.
See, you're the opposite, which work out well because most of the stuff we want to overlap in the bag. Although I do have Sour Patch watermelon inside my top 10, so there you go. But let's get back to the fancy stuff, and I wanted to ask you about the Jaguars because similar to like the Chargers in a different way, kind of a roller coaster season for one being Brian Thomas. Actually, this entire team has been a roller coaster. Travis Etienne was up and now he's down. Travis Hunter was a non-factor, drop him in leagues. Now he's back and he's getting the buzz right now. Everybody's talking about, like the talent's finally showing through. Liam Cohen's woken up. He's going to use him out there. There was even talk, I'm sure you saw it earlier this week. Well, I mean, it's Tuesday when we're talking about this, but on Monday, they're like, hey, Travis Hunter could get run as the one wide receiver, which is not really my fear, or not even my excitement. I think, look at how many teams in the NFL we can have a good 1 and 2. I actually look at this as, yes, we should be excited for Travis Hunter, but I also put that I think this is a buy low situation for Brian Thomas because the wrist was clearly an issue more than he let on. We know that he made the business decision and was avoiding contact and 50-50 balls, but also the first 3 weeks, barely over 40% of his balls were on target from Trevor Lawrence. And then the 3 weeks after, it was 100% in every game. And we were like, oh my God, we're back to Brian Thomas. But that Brian Thomas that we know this year, Florio, is probably more of a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1. And Travis Hunter can be a wide receiver 3. That's how I see it. How do you?
I agree with you. I think it's a buy low opportunity on Brian Thomas Jr. right now. I will say that I loved Travis Hunter in NFL and fantasy draft season. So I have him on a lot of teams. I am plugging him into all of those lineups this week because I think the genie's out of the bottle or whatever cliche you want to use there, right? Like we were seeing glimpses of it. Like he had, I think it was on the Monday night game a couple weeks ago. He had that like one really long catch where he had to go over the defender. He in that same game, he had a really nice catch and run play. But then after that, what he did against LA in London stands out in a big way. His best game as a pro. But like I took Liam Cohen at his word. I was like, this is a good OC. He's not going to lie to us. They're going to use him offensive first. And the first 5-6 weeks, it was like they had no plan with Travis Hunter. But I do think their plan was to get him where he could play on both sides consistently, right? Like we saw one game where it was more offense, then one game where it was more defense, and there was a game mixed in where it was kind of 50-50. I expect him to be a full-time offensive player the rest of the way. So that's why I just believe in his talent so much. The opposite for Brian Thomas Jr. I didn't love him as a prospect, and then I had big egg on my face last year. I think last year he overperformed a little bit, and I think this year he's underperforming a bit. I think he could still be a very good wide receiver too, like you said. maybe we need to get Mac Jones in here because that's when he was at his best. But yeah,
I know that's crazy.
it doesn't make sense to me. But this week, the Raiders, not only are they in the top 5 in fantasy points allowed, they have really struggled against wide receivers, and that's where Brian Thomas does the most of his damage. So I would say buy low this week because that window could close. And look, if the Jags are serious about trying to trade him, like the Bills and every other team that needs a wide receiver should be offering whatever they can. Yeah, I think that's just smoke. I don't really believe it. But yeah, I think both of I do think though, sorry for rambling. I do think there might be some weeks where like at the end of the year, BTJ is a wide receiver 2, Travis Hunter's a wide receiver 3, but I think in any week Hunter could be their wide receiver 1 and any week both or either of them could finish as a fantasy wide receiver 1.
No, I'm glad you said that. And for anybody that's potentially listening on Friday, and if Brian Thomas Jr. isn't back from injury this week, I apologize, but this is a Tuesday recording that we're doing this. And I'm going to give you real quick toss-up, because it's not the time. We can go as long as you want. I want to get you out of here because you got to get to your awesome job over there over at the NFL Network. Would you take rest of season, Stefon Diggs, your boy, or, I know he's not with your team anymore, he's still your boy, but Stefon Diggs or Travis Hunter rest of season?
Oh, that I kind of want to lean Travis. I think I'm going to go Travis.
You want to chase the ceiling? You're going to chase the ceiling.
Yeah. The thing about Diggs is he had that one game again. Like it was the game leading up to the Bills in that game, and I joke on our pod that it was clearly powered by hate. Like I think the Patriots are saving the best of Diggs for later in the year because he's at an advanced stage in his career. So I think there will be weeks like the last couple where he just disappoints. Plus, Drake May is airing it out at such a high rate. He has more long touchdowns than incompletions right now. And he is clearly going to keep throwing it deep. Diggs isn't that guy anymore. He can still do it occasionally, but I think Booty and some of the other guys they have there are better suited to play that deep role. So he's not going to have, in my opinion, those spike weeks as often as you may think.
Drake May is also a lot. Drake May is also a lot like your boy Josh Allen, and the fact that he spreads it around. Like he doesn't force it to anybody. Like, so I'm not calling him Josh Allen yet for everybody out there. And they know that a few weeks ago I was just saying, "What?
I've done that.
You've done that
since last season." I've been like, "This guy is the closest thing I've ever seen to Josh Allen."
Oh, sure, yeah, talent 1 for 1, but like I was like, let's chill out on the fact that like he's not top 10 yet in the NFL, like all quarterbacks.
He doesn't run as well as Allen.
No, but he's at this point. So I said that he wasn't top 10 yet 4 weeks ago. I think he's now putting his name in like at 10. Like I think he might have like pushed his name because it's kind of hard.
He's not in your top 10 fantasy quarterbacks?
No, not fantasy. Fantasy's top 5.
Okay.
Real life quarterbacks. A whole different discussion.
So there's the big 4.
Are we really going to do this? You got to get out of here. I could do this another day.
There's Jaden. There's Hurts. After that, I don't know, man.
So like Allen, Joe Burrow healthy, Lamar Jackson. I'm just going through teams now in my head. Mahomes, obviously. Hurts, that's 5. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Who else? I would take Jaden still, a healthy Jaden. And that's just because of what it does to defenses. It's such a serious threat. So we're at 6. Who else do we have? Like I'm trying to think. Like now I got to go through the NFC. So a healthy Dak is now in the conversation. Now, if you wanted to argue for Drake May because Dak's done it longer and health, and like I would still take Dak. But if like that's the thing too. Think about it. Like this would be Drake May's first playoff performance. So like, would you take Dak or would you take Drake May with your playoff game on the line? I think I'd still lean slightly Dak, and that's where I would still slightly lean. And you know, I'm not a huge fan of his Jared Goff, and I would take Baker Mayfield. 100%. I
think Baker belongs in there. Jordan Love?
So now we're not, I mean, Jordan Love, no, I would just go with Drake May's upside at this point. But if we're knocking Dak out, like that's my point, is like this was before, it was like I would actually take Jordan Love back in week 3 or 4. But now, like I think that he's pushed his name inside the top 10. So we'll also chill out maybe like the top 6 or 7. But fantasy is a completely different story. But next one.
I thought you were saying fantasy is not top 10.
No.
Like, whoa.
No. Definitely not there. So, speaking of the Chiefs and Mahomes, that we did get them in there, and your Bills. So, it's funny. We see this perception, and this kind of happens every single year, is like, oh, you know, this team is getting destroyed by this or destroyed by that. And a lot of times it's a 3 or 4 game sample. And if we look at the Bills, it essentially was they could not stop the run for a 3 or 4 game sample. As you well know, this is your team, Florio. And then we have the bye, and all of a sudden, you know what? They're not like stomping people, but they're playing decently, and decently enough that is Kareem Hunt with no Pacheco, assuming that Pacheco's out this week. I think everybody's assuming he's out for why risk him in this game. Would you go Kareem Hunt, or to go back to the Bam Knight situation, are your Bills that vulnerable against the run?
I would go Bam Knight over Kareem Hunt, but I do very much still think Kareem Hunt is in play this week, because not only are the Bills, they are very weak against the run, but they struggle more against speed and explosive runs. So I also think Rashard Smith is a sleeper in this one. But the thing about Kareem Hunt is he gets all the goal line work. So he could give you something like 30 yards in this game and still finish with double digits because of the touchdown upside that he could see. And Jake, I know this is a Kareem Hunt question, but I have no idea how to feel about the Bills going into this game. Like, it's hard for me to get excited. It's such a big game for this year and this MVP race and everything. But until they beat them in the playoffs, I'm not allowing myself to get excited about regular season stuff.
Yeah, but you want to. It's like the Mets. You want to. You want to believe. Like X-Files, you want to believe.
I don't think they should be, but I think whoever wins this game is the clear-cut MVP favorite after this week.
I could definitely see that. And then it might change slightly throughout the rest of the season, but I think that's a good way to put it, is that, I mean, Mahomes at this point, though, feels like he's just doing it because he wants to do it. He's been like, you know what? I haven't been part of the discussion. I'm getting myself back in. I'm putting myself back in.
He should. I think Jonathan Taylor should be one personally.
Yeah. No question. Yeah.
Never going to happen. But Mahomes of quarterbacks, I think, is leading it. But if Allen beats him and Lamar head-to-head, I think he overtakes as one.
All right. One more fun question. One more fantasy question. Get you out of here. Here's the fun one. You've experienced this. It's the Nando DeFino pick your poison. You have to pick one of these 3 options. So, Michael Florio, and I always customize it to the people involved. Usually I make the custom one the 3rd one, but I'm making it the 1st one for you. Tomorrow, for the rest of his career, Josh Allen is replaced by Bryce Young.
Nope.
So that's number 1. That's number 1. Number 2, everyone in your fantasy league can see your fab bids, but you can't see anybody else's before they happen.
Okay.
That's number 2. And then number 3 is, you've seen those slap fighters that they do in those competitions. So one of those slap fighters sits next to you on set and on your podcast, and every time you say they slap you as hard as they can.
I almost said just there. For me, this is easily number 2. I will. Josh Allen is my favorite athlete.
You might never win a fab ever.
Well, is this for the rest of time or the rest of this season?
An entire season, but it's all your leagues. They can always see your fabs. And it's like,
well, the good thing is, at this point in the year, I don't have, like, in the flex league, I have not had $1 of fab for like 2 weeks now.
That doesn't count. All right, so no, for 2026, then you have to choose that everybody can see your fabs, and you can never see anybody else's. So they all know what your fab. You're still picking it.
I'm still picking because I love Josh Allen, and if he became Bryce Young now, I don't know if the Bills ever make the playoffs again, let alone some of the stuff I hope they do. And if I got slapped every time I said I wouldn't be able to go through a podcast. I'd have messed up teeth. My face would hurt. Like it would. I was gonna say bad. I wouldn't finish the podcast because of being knocked down on the floor. Yeah, exactly. One of those might knock me out. You know, those guys got some real power behind those swings. So yeah, for me, unfortunately, everyone could see my fat.
Okay. All right. Well, fantasy question will get you out of here. I had a feeling you might go that way. I knew, like, the first one, you're going to be like, just give me the next 2 options. I don't even want to hear it. All right. Last one before we get out of here. So the Packers wide receiver room, we've experienced this for years now, where the Packers, the whole argument was they don't have a one. And then you want to talk about taking one on the chin, as in like, hey, missed this call. I legit thought Matthew Golden would be the 1 or 2. And he would finally be the answer to, hey, you know what? Maybe he's not a true NFL 1. I didn't think he was, but I thought he could be the 1 or 2 for the Packers. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened so much so that Christian Watson's first game back, and what was seen as an aggressive return from the injury, that he was 4th, that being Golden, in targets behind Malik Heath, who is a freaking blocking wide receiver for all intents and purposes. And so we have Christian Watson back, was out there for like 75% of the routes and showed Christian Watson things. So this is what I'm just gonna leave the open floor to you, Florio. What do we make of the Packers wide receivers? Is there actually an answer?
I think right now the answer would be one of either Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson. I understand if people don't want to give up on Matthew Golden yet, but I don't see any way you could start him. Watson doesn't bring a floor, but we know he brings the upside, and he's kind of like Alec Pierce in the sense of like if you need a just a Hail Mary play for that week or whatever, you could always put them in because it just takes one play to really flip your week. But I do like Dobbs just because he's the one that never leaves the field. Like, regardless of who they have out there, he is always the one that plays the most snaps, runs the most routes. And I think there's chemistry between him and Jordan Love. He's getting utilized a little bit more. But at best case scenario, I want them to be my wide receiver 4 or worse. Like, I did pick up Christian Watson in the last week or two in a number of leagues because with buys and injuries, I definitely see a place where I will put him in some weeks. And hopefully he could become what we've always wanted him to become. But he's a far way from that right now, at least in my perception of him as a fantasy player. So I kind of like having him on my bench for like last week. I didn't do it because it was his first game back. But last week being an example, like 6 teams are on bye, lots of injuries. I could just plug Christian Watson in there and know that the potential is that he could give me 12, 15 fantasy points, something like that, if not more, because if he hits for a long touchdown or something. I know the floor is low, but that's to me how the Packers receivers should be utilized. If you have one of these guys as your every week starter, I think you're doing it wrong.
See, and I will say one thing, I agree with you, but I would say if they're your every week starter as your wide receiver 4/flex, I would put Watson in the same bucket as like Quentin Johnston, Kayshon Boutte, Alec Pierce, you just brought up. Like, that's why they're your 4s, is you can absorb the fact like, hey, he might get me 18, but he also might get me 2, but it's okay because he's my 4. Like, that's where I would say I'm good with it. Okay.
Which is something that I started doing in a lot of my leagues in the last year or two, is just like get these guys who have high upside because they might not hit, but if they do hit, they're going. Unlike I hate rostering Josh Downs. And a friend of ours who I share a team with loves rostering Josh Downs, so we have him. And I'm always like, every week it's like, do we play Josh? And I'm like, I never want to play Josh Downs because the floor is like less than 5.
Here's my argument for this is why I'll get you out of here. Devontae Smith, 4 games of 7 points or fewer. He's a wide receiver 1 in the season. Cortland Sutton's a top 15 wide receiver. 2 games of almost non-existence and a 3rd game under 8 points. Like, even wide receiver 2s and top 15 wide receivers are highly inconsistent this year. I don't know if you feel the same way, but this feels like the most variance I've ever seen in my career for wide receivers outside of basically the top 10.
Yeah, this year and last year I feel like are like bizarro seasons where like everything that we have, like last season it was the older running backs changing teams, like throw all of that out the window. Like these 2 years have just been very, very weird. But yeah, no, like as someone who rosters Travis Hunter and AJ Brown and a lot of these other, even like Jamar Chase early in the year, like it's been a lot of high variance week to week. Like I love AJ Brown. I never know what I'm going to get out of him any week, but I start him every week.
At least he's at least a 2 in that facet. But Florio's not a 2. He's a 1. Make sure at Michael F. Florio, the other but the better Florio in everybody's opinion, at least on anybody who knows us. NFL Network, all the fantasy shows, all the goodness. Thank you so much for coming on here, and we definitely need to connect. Even I have to come to you, then fine, be it, whatever. Like you spend all this time in New York, and then you're never there when I'm there.
Yeah, well, I told you it was weddings. Like literally last week I was out east for a wedding.
You have too many friends. You're an adult. You're a married adult. You shouldn't have this many friends anymore.
You know what? I have a bunch of friends that I'm still really close with from like high school, and they're all getting married I have 2 weddings next year, and I'm hoping that's it. But it makes it hard when you're out there so often, but just not at draft season, you know?
I've been to 1 wedding in the last 4 years. Mine.
I cannot wait until that is my life. I was the best man in this one last week. It was awesome to get to do.
That's fair.
Got married. I was a groomsman in another one. I had 2 this year on top of those 3 that I had to say no to because I wasn't in them. And then I have 2 next year that I'm in one of them. People always like, how are you in so many weddings? And I'm like, it's actually a curse. Like it's not a good.
I was gonna say that's so much money you're spending. But
the photo, I've taken so many photos of me just standing in a tux. Like I'm good for just Photoshop me in the next one, you know?
I wish I could get remarried, and then if you couldn't make the trip, I would just put you there. Like I'd buy a full stand and just have you like there in your tux. Oh, Coda, yeah, Coda's coming.
But that's awesome.
Yes. But anyway, get the hell out of here. You got things to do. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Once again, Michael Florio, one of the best, one of the nicest dudes in the industry, and deservedly so. He worked with Nando DeFino, who's also one of the nicest dudes in the industry. Learn from him, not from me. Definitely in that department. But buys and sells before we get out of here. We'll talk buys first because those are always more fun. Let's see who can go get. I mentioned Baker Mayfield in waivers. Mostly because of the poor performances the last 2 games. I gave context in the waiver, so go check that out. But also, looking at Baker Mayfield, still as a top 6-7 quarterback, also comes out of the bye. Patriots aren't the best right out of the gate. Bills, but you can look for a shootout in that one. Rams, yeah, I get, but like this, just wait, we're getting to it. So some iffy matchups there, but potential shootouts with the Bills and Rams. But then it gets the Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins to finish things out. So go get those Buccaneers pass catchers and Baker Mayfield if you can. Maybe even wait another week or 2. But I say this because he's on the bye and coming off 2 bad games. This might be the lowest that you'll be able to get him for. Speaking of being on a bye and banged up, I'd go get Quinshon Judkins if you could, if somebody's worried about that situation. Jets, Ravens, Raiders, 49ers, Titans, Bears, Bills, and Steelers. Starts to get a little tough at the end of the playoffs, but a really nice schedule for somebody who is looking like an RB1. On the flip side, talking wide receivers, Garrett Wilson gets the Browns, as we just mentioned with Judkins, coming out of the bye. And Patriots, not that great. So the Garrett Wilson one can kind of go like the Baker, where if you want to buy now, potentially the lowest, might get a little bit lower with those 2 matchups, especially if Christian Gonzalez is out there for the Patriots. But after that, you get the Ravens, Falcons, which middle of the road. But to finish things off, except for, you'll see. I might as well just tell you. Dolphins, Jaguars, Saints, and then Patriots in the championship game. But again, you're going to look real nice, and people are worried right now about Garrett Wilson and that offense in general. Some more wide receivers, A.J. Brown, given his situation and frustrations, a lot of people, like their managers don't even want him at this point. Packers out of the bye, but Lions, Cowboys, Bears, oh my, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, really good. Wan'Dale Robinson if you want, just because his value is a little bit depressed from recent games, and people are just completely out on this offense. Has some hit or miss defenses the rest of the way. Guess the Vikings the week before the championship, Raiders in the championship, Commanders 2 games before, so more of a playoff schedule that's somewhat appealing. Let's see what else. We got a few more buys. The Patriots, kind of as a whole, the backfield, and nobody wants to deal with the Stevenson situation, but he is still a part-timer. Maybe Henderson starts to take more, but this could be looking at like a Panther situation or a Seahawks situation, which no, that's not the upside that we want because we want top 20. But you can use them most weeks, especially when you see Buccaneers and Jets and Bengals and Giants, and then the Jets again in the championship game on their schedule for the rest of the season. Same thing for Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, still their number 1. I know Booty's been hitting the bigger plays and touchdowns, but if you can get Diggs on the cheap, I would, given that schedule. And then tight end, even though he's been playing well, even though this is finally the year since his rookie season, Kyle Pitts, nobody is excited about the fact that he's been top 10, and yet he's got a really nice schedule for the rest of the season, including teams like the Jets and the Saints and the Panthers and Cardinals all mixed in there. So those are your buys, and then here are your sells. I mentioned this quarterback as well in the power-up section of waivers, but Bo Nix, I know it's been exciting for the last 2 games, but he's got the Texans this week, could immediately crash back down to earth. And then the Raiders after that, which is cool, but we still have the Chiefs twice, including that 3rd game coming up, and in the championship game. He's got the Commanders and Raiders again in there, so that's nice. But again, to go back to the championship week, or playoff weeks, I should say, Packers, Jaguars gives you a reprieve, which still not the best, but middle of the road. But then Chiefs. So you get Packers, Jaguars, Chiefs to finish things out, which also the schedule ties into RJ Harvey coming off that game. His workload didn't actually go up. It was just an insane touchdown rate. 3 to 8 touches. 3 touchdowns, 8 touches. Cool. I don't think anybody's expecting that again. So RJ Harvey and Troy Franklin coming off that game. Basically Broncos, given that schedule. It is hit or miss. There are some good matchups in there, but their peak value potentially is right now. I know I mentioned the Giants with Wan'Dale Robinson, but it actually reverses for the running back situation with Tyrone Tracy. You might not be able to trade him, but if you are like me and stashed him in some spots, 49ers isn't terrible. Bears is nice, but Packers, Lions, Patriots, Commanders is okay. Vikings, Raiders to finish things out. Raiders is cool to finish things out, but as you saw in there, not the best schedule that could hurt the offense, especially in the running game, or more so in the running game. And then I'll give you 3 more technically 4 more before we get out of here. Travis Hunter, a sell with all this excitement. Yes, I know he could push Brian Thomas for the potential number 1 role, and I think you could potentially have a really nice duo for the Jaguars. However, after the Raiders, one of the toughest matchups in the league, and the Texans, Chargers, cool with the Cardinals, cool with the Titans, but then Colts, Jets, could be good, could be bad, but then Broncos, Colts to finish things out. It's not miserable, but it's pretty dang tough for Trevor Lawrence at the same time. Maybe they come out of the gate or out of the bye and look revitalized like the early season Trevor Lawrence, but it's at least enough concern that if you're getting top 20, 24-ish value for Travis Hunter because of the excitement, now might be the time to sell. Rome Odunze, who I actually think is a great buy and sell. Like buy if he's not going to be costing you wide receiver 1 value, especially with the Bengals this week, and then the Giants after that. But if you are getting top 10 return, you could also sell. So it depends on which way you want to go with the Odunze, because after the Bengals and Giants, it's Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, and then 49ers at the end. The Bears schedule, if you just didn't go, oh my gosh, maybe your butt cheeks clenched on that one. That's almost as tough as you get for all these schedules. And then to finish things out, Ladd McConkey. Look, only Ladd McConkey if you're going to be getting top 6, 7 wide receiver value. If fringe wide receiver 1 value, no. But the fact that he's performing as a top 5, 6, 7 wide receiver of late, mentioned this as well in the waivers, you're going to see some inconsistency from Gadsden, who's also a potential sell if you're going to get top 5 tight end value. If you're going to get George Kittle, Tucker Kraft-like value for Gadsden, then I'd say trade him. And again, Ladd McConkey, only if that they're going to have some bad games, and then you might be able to buy them back. Just because there's 4 options on that team. Obviously, it seems Quentin Johnson is going to be the odd man out, but he'll have some good games and somebody will get left out instead. But anyway, to go back to the Chargers, Titans, no, not worried about it this week. Steelers, Jaguars, Raiders, nah. But then also Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys is really nice in your layup game to the championship, but you have to get there because you have to get there through the Eagles and Chiefs, and then the Texans for championship game. That's the only reason why. Like, again, I gave you the context is like I'm not selling just to sell, and this is why I'm doing it on the podcast instead of the articles, but enough context to hopefully give you a lot of options for buys and sells. And we're back on Friday with all the news, injuries, and reports and everything to get you ready for Week 9 to make sure you are in that playoff hunt. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy that Halloween candy.